Hello and welcome to Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder ADHD workshop, Understanding ADHD, the three areas of diversity and their effect on learning and behaviour. This is module 2, Inattention, attention seeking, attention needing and difficulties paying attention. So as you probably guessed, this one's all about attention. My name's Andrew Whitehouse and I'm a TEDx speaker, from disability to superpowers. If you get yourself onto YouTube or TED.com, you can find that. Just look for Andrew Whitehouse, TEDx. I'm also a Bamford lecturer for the British Academy of Audiology. I created a lecture called Creating Autism Friendly Audiology Clinics, which is all about making audiology clinics more suitable for the needs of people with autism. I deliver short courses for Bishop Grosseteste University and the University of Lincoln. I'm a forensic special educational needs and disability consultant. That means I do work in the courts for special educational needs and disability court cases as an expert witness. I do training, observations, and I'm a keynote speaker. If you want to be in touch with me, you can contact me at Facebook, Andrew at People First Education, on Twitter at Andrew WSEN, and on Instagram at Andrew WSEN. I'm also on LinkedIn at Andrew Whitehouse, and you can email me Andrew at peoplefirsteducation.com, or I'm on the web at peoplefirsteducation.com. All nice and simple, and I'll be delighted to hear from you, delighted to sort of hear how you get on with these workshops. So here we are with workshop number 2, module number 2, ADHD, and it's attention deficit hyperactive impulsive disorder. If you remember the module 1, when we talked about this, I've added impulsive to the criteria for ADHD. Normally call it ADHD. And I was suggesting that we call it ADHD, ADHD, because that helps us to remember the impulsive behaviours for people with ADHD. I'd also like to draw your attention to the fact that you will have seen this slide before in the previous workshop in Module 1, that not all types of ADHD have the attention deficit. Only 2. So in fact there's 3 types of ADHD: the combined type, inattention, hyperactivity and impulsivity. We've also got ADD, which is inattention and impulsivity, and those two both have the inattention in there. The hyperactive impulsive ADHD is basically ADHD without the A, ADHD without the attention deficit. So there are only 2 kinds of ADHD that do have the attention deficit. So just to show you again from last time, we've got the diagram again. Basically, the 2 kinds of ADHD are inattention, impulsivity, hyperactivity, or inattention and impulsivity. So there is one kind that doesn't have the hyperactivity with it. Other thing I'm going to do for this little bit of a workshop is I've got this timer here, which I use. I got this from TTS online, and they gave me a couple of these, and I use this for helping with timings. I'm going to bring this, I think we've already done a few minutes, so this is I'm going to set this for 70 minutes, which is the length of this talk, and I press go. And this is going to remind us when we get halfway through. I just thought you might like to see this. It's a really good little resource for helping people with ADHD keep their attention. And it's a timing down clock, so it times down and lets you know when we're at certain stages. When it gets to halfway through, it'll ring up amber, and when it gets to the end, it'll be red. And I will show you that. Okay, moving right along. Thank you for your attention. As what I'm going to be explaining to you with this particular workshop is that attention deficit in ADHD is not just about the inability to pay attention. That's part of it, but attention deficit runs a lot deeper than this. So I'll show you here all the things that it covers. So you can read on the screen there. Inattention, the difficulty to pay attention, or the difficulty to pay attention for extended periods of time. So this is a particular problem if maybe you're a person with ADHD who's talking to somebody about something you're not interested in, or more to the point, maybe something that causes you discomfort. Maybe somebody's talking to you and being invasive about your personal life, and the tendency for someone with ADHD is to switch off during that kind of conversation and not to engage with that. This is not a choice thing. This is a neurological phenomenon. This is the way the ADHD brains work. So if they're talking to you about something you're really interested in, then that would cause you to be able to pay attention for a significantly longer period of time. I want to talk to you about attention spans, how long your attention is. I've got a short video about squirrels and goldfish coming up a little bit later, and that will explain how long a person with ADHD can pay attention. It's not an exact science, but it's close enough, and if you work to it, you'll find that really helpful. I want to talk about the attention seeker, sometimes called the class clown, the person who with ADHD who's trying to get your attention. And I want to discuss whether attention seeking really is that, or in some cases, is it attention needing? And what I mean by the difference there is, for example, if you've got a child that's got a difficult things going on in your home life, or here's a good one, if you've been the baby of the family and suddenly a new baby enters into the home and you're no longer the baby in the family and your position within that family has been displaced, then that can cause a need for getting attention that you previously had and you're not getting anymore. And I really want to talk about sort of finding out the difference between attention seeking and attention needing. I want to talk about getting the right and the wrong type of attention. We get a lot of this, you see a lot of this with children with attachment disorder and attachment issues in actual fact, but when children are behaving inappropriately or presenting with challenging behaviour, what they may well be doing is seeking or needing the wrong kind of attention. And what we want to do is to turn that round into being the right kind of attention. So we want to give them those choices and say to them and show them and demonstrate and all those things to say, look, if you do good things for me, I'm going to give you the attention you need as well. So you don't have to be negative with me. I will respond to that. So that's quite a nice thing to be working on, and I find that really successful in my practice. And then finally in attention, attention to detail, getting things right, not making silly mistakes. It's interesting because the cover page of this slide has got my name with all the letters behind it that I've managed to pick up along the way. And I've noticed I've missed half of them out. Hey, it's an ADHD thing. So that would be attention to detail. And attention to detail is really important. So now what I would like you to do, I would like you to watch a short video. How long is your attention span? And this video basically is, I've called it a few words about squirrels and goldfish. I'd just like to mention a former accountant of mine called Russell, who absolutely loves this video. It's a silly video. I filmed it in the kitchen of my home, but what I'm basically telling you is how long an attention span is. And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to quickly talk you through it now but then you'll see it as part of the video. So your attention span, depending on who you read, but this, with my practice, I found this pretty much spot on, is your age plus a minute up to the age of 16. So if you're 16 years old, your attention span is 17 minutes long. However, if you put in a neurological diversity like ADHD, you can knock a third off that. So basically, everyone's attention span up to whatever age, 50, 60, 17 minutes over the age of 16. But below 16, it's your age plus a minute. So if you're 8 years old, it's 9 minutes. With ADHD, you can knock a third off that. So an 8-year-old with ADHD would have an attention of 6 minutes. So what I'm going to do, we're filming this in a mock-up studio here, so we're having to be a little bit creative. So what I'm going to do, this video is 1 minute 42 seconds. So I'm going to set my timer for 1 minute 42 seconds so that we know the timings all work in the video. And I hope you enjoy the film. A few words about squirrels and goldfish by me. Let me tell you what your attention span is. Your attention span is your age plus a minute, but we believe that that stops at the age of 16. So, hang on, that's all right. So we believe that the maximum optimum attention span is 17 minutes. But if you had, hold up a second. I was just looking at my son's goldfish. Do you want to see it? Okay. Right. So, 17 minutes is the most you can hope to get out of anybody. But your problem is, I can't remember now. Oh yeah, if you add a neurological disorder into that, like ADHD or dyslexia or something like that, you can knock a third off that. So essentially, isn't that pretty? Look at that. I think that's my daughter's nose. It's really nice though. So essentially, the most you can get out of anyone really is 11 minutes. So if you had a 7-year-old child with ADHD, you're looking about an attention span between 5 and 6 minutes. Oh look, a squirrel. Oh well, anyway, thanks for listening. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed that film. I know it's a little bit silly, but actually I think it's pretty darned accurate as well. And I must admit it gets used a lot in staff training in certain environments, and it's been quite a successful one. So I hope you enjoyed that. So remember that, it's your age plus a minute up until the age of about 16, and knock off a third if you are working with someone with ADHD. And actually that would make that about 11 minutes if you're working with adults with ADHD. And I use that in my training when I'm delivering workshops. I use I use 11-minute chunks, have a little chat about something, then stop, have a little discussion, and then move it on again. It's a lot easier with this kind of workshop because all you've really got to do is if you want to take a break, you can press pause, you can get yourself a cup of coffee or whatever, come back again. But on normal face-to-face workshops, that's what I do, and I call it the 11-minute rule. Right. So, I want to talk about the ADHD friendly classroom, but I want to talk about the ADHD friendly classroom with a focus on attention deficit and inattention. One of the things that you really need to be aware of is that when the child is calling out or struggling to conform, it's not about behaviour, it's not naughtiness. If they're calling out in a classroom, it's more likely to be that they can't help themselves. So it's worth you knowing that it is part of their impulsive behaviour, that they literally need to get that information out there. And I'm going to show you something here, which is called a premium talk time board. Can we just pause, Isaac? Thank you. So this is an interesting resource. I'm just going to move the slide forward. This is an interesting resource. This is called a premium talk time board. I call it a talking whiteboard. You know, you'll be familiar with the little whiteboards that children have on the carpet, or they might have on their desk. So you ask them a question, and you. Sorry, I'm being directed.
The play button's the wrong way around.
Oh, that doesn't matter.
Oh, okay.
You basically you'll be familiar with the little boards that they use on the carpet. So when was the Battle of Hastings? And the child will be there, and they'll go 1066. Okay, and there you go. You would show that on there. Or what's 5 times 5? If it's a maths lesson, and it's 25. Yeah, and you've got the very excited little child there with ADHD, and they're desperate to be part of this, and they will call out before everyone else gets a chance to write anything. When was the battle of, not even getting to finish the word Hastings, when was the battle of 1066, miss? Yes, thank you. Let somebody else have a go. Thank you. Well, this is a really lovely way of dealing with this. So I'm going to turn it on. And when was the Battle of Hastings? 1066. Turn it off, and when you're ready to play it back, 1066. Dead simple. Simples. Now, the reason I like this one is because this works, and why I like this for ADHD is because what you've got an issue whereby children with ADHD, they process slightly differently to other children. So if we were talking about autism and quite a lot of other children, they're visual processors, so they might take it in and they might represent that in a visual way. In ADHD, it's in through the eyes, out through the mouth, and so they're processing it in visually, but they react verbally. Now that verbal reaction is actually more linked to the impulsive behaviour, but it also, because it's the quickest way to get the information to you. But the other thing you've got to remember is, as far as attention deficit is, if they can't get their answer out quickly, then there's a good chance they're going to have forgotten it by the time they get a chance to sort of show their board, or even get it written down on the board. So to record it in there, you've taken away the need for them to call out. I have huge success with those boards, really do. I'll show you again. I absolutely love these things. And so I call them talking whiteboards, but they're from TTS, and TTS call them premium talk time cards. There you go. I think my name's better for them, but the product, can't fault the product, can we? Okay. So, child called Eddie, name changed. He said to me, it's better to be noticed for good things than bad things. Now, I discussed this with you very briefly earlier, but this is a fact, yeah? Just before we go on with this, by the way, I did actually see somebody a teacher refer to children on Twitter last week as good children and bad children, and they were being absolutely deadly serious. Can you believe this? Anyway, moving on. It's better to be noticed for good things than bad things, said Eddie, and I think it is. It's getting that message across to children that actually we are interested in them, and we do want to hear from them, and we do want to know what they're talking about, and we do want to give them attention, and we do want to spend quality time with them. All those things. It's just that what we don't need is children who are making our life and the other children's lives difficult. And so it's getting them across that actually, if you help me with something, I'm going to give you all the attention you want. I'm going to give you the thanks, the praise, and I'm going to you may be involved in some kind of reward system. And so it's really important to get that across to kids. And one of the ways you can do that is with practice. I remember in my first year of teaching, I had a teaching assistant who was actually, I swear to you, she could have only been bettered by Mary Poppins. This woman was absolutely fantastic. And she never had, it was quite a challenging school, and she never had any difficulties with any of the children there. And I said, how do you do this? How do you manage to do this? She said, it's very simple, Andrew. She said, I ignore the bad behaviour and I praise the good behaviour. And she did. She could literally screen out anything she didn't like and just praise what she did like. And it actually worked with these kids, and they would respond to her every time. Absolutely fantastic. Where are you now, Sue, when we need you? This is The Blob Tree by Pip Wilson. If you're out there, Pip, I'm recommending this book. I think it's a fantastic book. Really good book of visuals. It's about helping children recognise emotions. I'm going to be bringing it back into play in the autism courses, because I think this resource of The Blob Tree is absolutely fantastic. Anyone's been on any leadership training, you use it for all that sort of stuff. And what it basically is you've got lots and lots of figures in there with all different facial expressions, body language, and different ways of collaborating with other figures in the picture. And what I do, you know, is I say I do a lot of how does this one feel and which one's like you and all the rest of it. But I'd love to talk to you about the one sitting on the branch. So if you look at the branch to your right, just above the person swinging on the rope, and you've got a person, a blob I should say, with their back to us. I'll give you a close-up of that. And it's this one here. And I used it as a question for years. I used to say, how does that one feel? So I'd get somebody up, I'd say, which one's you? And then when they've done that, I'd say, how does this one feel? And they'd do certain things with it, which they usually call it a him, which was always interesting. But anyway, they'd say, oh, left out, lonely, all the rest of it. And I remember one person saying to me, oh, looking at a beautiful view the others can't see. Yeah, actually, that's just as relevant, isn't it? We don't really know what's going through their mind. What we are doing is we're trying to describe feelings, and we're trying to sort of be empathic. That's the important bit. But I was in a school for the deaf in Yorkshire, and there was one of the deaf teachers there, and she said, he's an attention seeker. And I laughed. I thought, that's so funny. Well, that's back to what we were just saying, isn't it? Better to be noticed for good things than bad. So what this person is doing is creating a negative image, if that's correct, a negative image that's trying to get our attention. And so we would come to that, and we would come to that child, and we'd say, you okay? What's the matter? You know. So that's fine. These days we don't use the term attention seeker. We use the term attention needer. Excuse me. And that got me to thinking, actually, I think taking attention seeker out of the picture is not helpful. In actual fact, we've got both. We've got attention seekers and attention needers. I was just playing with my timer then. But attention seekers and attention needers. There are two types of person, and it's really worth trying to identify that in the classroom when you're teaching, what sort of person that is. If they're an attention seeker, you can put them in positions where they can be doing that sort of thing. You know, for example, high profile roles in the classroom. And if they're an attention needer, then you can be aware of that and be aware of how important it is to give that child the attention they need when they need it. Okay. Make sure they know the boundaries. Avoid long discussions about what is right and wrong about their behaviour. Tell them what you want, focusing on the positives. This is a big thing for me. telling them what you want, not what you don't want. Here's my coffee. I'm going to be drinking my coffee here. Andrew, don't put your coffee down there. My big problem is not about that. It's more to do with the fact that, okay, but where do you want me to put it? Tell me what you want. On the positives is, Andrew, please use a coaster. I know exactly what you need. I'm going to tell you a story now, one of my lovely little stories that I like to tell about Mrs. Middleton. Mrs. Middleton sent me an email. I didn't know who Mrs. Middleton was, totally out of the blue, and she wanted some visual intervention training, and she wrote this email, and it said, "Dear Andrew," I might have even gone Andrew. I don't like those. Andrew, we need some visual story training, and these are the dates we got available. I want you to cover this, 5 bullet points. I look forward to your reply. And I remember thinking, what a sort of slightly rude email, you know, a little bit abrupt. But actually, the reality of the email was, it wasn't rude. She was telling me exactly what she wanted. It was very difficult to get it wrong for this person. I found out a little bit more about this lady as life went on. Mrs. Middleton was the head of Middleton School, by the way, and she lived in Middleton Close. So that's quite a long time ago now, but it's, you know, gives you an indication of possibly why the email come across the way it did. So tell them what you want, make sure they know the boundaries, which is what was done for me, and avoid long discussions about what is right and wrong about their behaviour. These kids don't necessarily have a problem with right and wrong. They've got a problem with doing what you want them to do. They know it's wrong, they know it's right, but they just want you to know what you need them to do. Okay. Minimize distractions. I have a t-shirt. It's an ADHD t-shirt, and it says, ADHD, ask me about my attention span, something like that. And then it goes, oh, look, a squirrel. And if you lift it up, it's got a squirrel on the inside. The people are easily distracted. You know, any teacher that knows if there's a fox or a cat, or if it's snowing or something like that outside the classroom, you're going to get distractibility. And the attention deficit in people with ADHD means that distractibility is magnified. So in actual fact, you need to be aware of that, and you need to think carefully about seating children with ADHD in different places. So you might have them away from the windows, away from the displays, maybe near a calm wall. What I mean is something it's just a plain wall. When you're doing things like handouts and worksheets, you keep them uncluttered and keep them clear and specific. Nice, clear, explicit language on these things. That's what we need. So trying to bring down the sensory overload and the sensory environment. Here's a picture of 2 classrooms, and I've put, what do I see most? Now, there's an interesting thing there, because on the classrooms, when I'm delivering face-to-face courses, large groups of people, I say, which one do you think is the best learning environment? Which one do you think are the children able to access better than the others? And they always look at it and they go, oh yeah, the one on the left, where we've got lots of little ideas and activities and things going on, different kind of carousel type activities, and self-initiated, I would imagine, learning. Which one do I see the most? The one I see the most is the one on the right. And which one's like your classroom? Probably the one on the right. And yet we've got that investigative nature of ADHD. We've got that short attention span of ADHD. And we've got that need to be excited and to be stimulated with ADHD. And so I would really, really strongly think about something a little bit more like the one on the left. That's where I would be going with that. Trying to get a different, more exciting learning environment going. How do we do that? Some of the best teaching and learning I've seen has been these short burst 10-minute activities. You'll notice that I'm talking about this quite a lot. This is really important to me. Short burst 10-minute activities. I remember being in a school doing an observation of a child. It was a parent funded one, so it was a parent wanting me to go and do an observation of their child. And I went in, and the behaviour across the whole classroom was pretty questionable, and was just happened to be that on the day that I was in there, there was a leading maths teacher had come in from another environment to deliver a sample maths lesson, and they sort of got all the teachers standing at the back to see what this maths lesson was all about and how this leading maths teacher delivered maths. And what was fascinating about that was the maths teacher's in there, she's doing this thing, and it was all 10-minute activities. It was a primary school, key stage 2, so a few minutes on the carpet, back to your tables, build this, do that, go and sit with someone else, do this with your partners, etc, etc, etc. A little bit of IT in there, and it was fantastic. And the behaviour changed for the positive immeasurably. And that's what I'm talking about, keeping young people moving. They're designed, as I've said before, for bouncing about. So get them bouncing about. Their learning is geared around that. So what could you do to make a change? Here you go. I'm going to give you an hour for nothing. This is something that I do in lots of environments. I said, try these 6 things. 10 minutes of auditory learning. Sitting on the carpet, sitting at your tables if you're a little bit older, whatever, in secondary classrooms, sitting at your tables. Auditory, 10 minutes. I'm going to tell you about that. Okay. Then you've got tactile. Tactile is different to kinesthetic. Tactile is how something feels, not how it works, how it feels. Excuse me. And tactile, to be, feel it, touch it, how's it feel? Right. Then we might have 10 minutes of how that thing works. And so, what have you discovered about it? How does it do this? How does it do that? Maybe we could tell a friend. So we're talking to a friend about it, and then you might have 10 minutes on the ICT, looking at different types of this thing, whatever this thing may be. Dread to think what thoughts are going through your heads now. What do you think the thing is? And then we might research it and find out some more information about it. What, how did it come to be? Where are we looking next with this kind of item? That's an hour's learning. That's an hour's learning of real excitement. Proper head, hands, heart stuff. And so, short burst 10 minutes activity. And while I'm getting excited, if we're talking about ADHD, then we've got that in through the eyes, out through the mouth sort of thing going. So, you might want to get some more verbal tasks in there. So we could maybe write a little bit about it, write a little bit about this thing that we're investigating, might do a little bit of analytical thought on there, and then might share, come up to the front, share with the group. A few people share with the group, have a debate about its uses. If it's something that's got questionable ethics or possibility of questionable ethics, have something like that going on. Get that kind of thing going, and then a sorting activity and a questioning activity. That's 2 hours worth of learning that I've just given you there. And you only got to do that twice a day. You've only got to do that twice a day. Imagine the potential there with maths, science, IT, literacy, English, all those things that you can do that sort of structure of a lesson with. And of course you can take them, you can mix those 12 different learning activities, and you can sort them out in whatever way you want. And you're guaranteed to meet the learning needs of pretty much every individual in the classroom at least 2 or 3 times a day. So give it a thought, do something different. My job's the easiest job in the world. All I do is, if I get called in, it means that something's not working. And so all I've got to do is come up with something different. There's only 2 things that can happen. It gets better or it stays the same. By the time I get called in, it's usually at its worst. So it generally doesn't get worse. So it gets better or it stays the same. So then give it a little go. Try it. Okay, unambiguous positive classic classroom rules. Display unambiguous positive classroom rules. Yeah, that's quite a nice one. To have those things up on the wall, and it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be kind of dictatorial. You know, you can. It doesn't have to be don't do this and don't do that and don't do this and don't do that. And to be honest with you, those don't work anyway. As I explained with the teacup scenario, don't put your cup there. You know, you want to tell people what to do, but it doesn't even though they are rules that are going up, they don't have to look aggressive. So, for example, um, uh, you know, don't forget to clear your paints away. Don't forget to do this. Don't forget to do that sort of thing. And using visuals, the Blue Peter way of doing things is that whole here's what I'm looking for. This is what I want it to be like. And can you make it look like that? So using your visuals, clear visual instructions. If you're going to be doing things verbally, say them more than once, write them on the board, check that the child understands. Check, you know, so this is what I want you to do. Here it's written down. Here's a picture of what it looks like. And do you want to explain to me what is it you think I'm looking for? Just go through it with me just so I know we both understand. And there you go. And then you might even provide the child with a checklist of their own. And in ADHD, lists are king. We can't do anything without lists in ADHD. So lists are a way of making sure we're on track, we know what we're doing. Okay. Okay. Here's an interesting one for you. Gain the child's attention. Don't expect that just purely by being in the room, you've got the child's attention. You haven't. You need to bring everyone into you. One of the ways you can do that, of course, is to be in the classroom before the children arrive. That's a really good one. But in actual fact, make sure that you get their attention. And then when you've got a task, break it down into smaller component parts. Some of the simplest things you might ask someone to do can come across as quite difficult, really. And because a simple operation may have more stages to it than you think it does. And then obviously make learning fun. Children with ADHD get bored very, very quickly. Adults with ADHD get bored very, very quickly. And don't forget, they are in that learning environment every day of the week, Monday to Friday. So you've got to make that time in there. You've got to do something to make that environment more exciting, more interesting. Okay. Sorry, just doing that. And attention deficit. And this is what you're likely to get. So where we've got that girl sitting at the back of the class, staring into space, if you remember from Module 1, Pleasant Space Cadet, you've got the sleeper, etc. So what I would like to do now is I'd like you to invite you to watch another video. This video is called Silent Study. And this was filmed by me in a university, and I was in a room where it's called a silent study room, and in this room we're not allowed to make noises, not allowed to disturb other people. It's a quiet learning space, and I thought I would make a film of how that works out for people with ADHD and what it's like being in that silent study in that slightly boring learning environment. So if you forgive me, I'm going to put a timer on for 55 seconds, which is how long the film is. You should be able to manage 55 seconds, and I hope you enjoy it. And as you can see, it's all in there. The fiddling, the messing about, the fit of the giggles, the looking around to see if anyone else is watching, the silly little class clown antics, they're all in there, and I can assure you that they weren't faked. So that's, you know, that's a really good indicator, and that's the kind of stuff you're trying to avoid really in the classroom. So moving it along, some of the things you can do: seat the child next to a good role model or learning buddy. Role modeling, buddying, very, very good. You know, what you got to remember is that these kids don't want to be in trouble all the time. These kids don't want to be failing. They don't want to be finding their work difficult. So, you know, getting them in an environment with maybe a good role model is a really helpful thing to do. If they're a secondary child, things that you can do for them, write down their homework in their planner for them. You know, it's just sort of save them that little job. Creating visual reminders of what they need to bring into every lesson, almost like a visual timetable, but a visual images of your resources, and keep one at home, one in your bag, have one everywhere, have one stuck to the back door so you don't forget. All those things really helpful, really good that we can do that. Okay. Do not set lengthy homework tasks. Go for quality. You know, when we're making these videos up, there's a whole lot of upload time and time to wait when you get in images like we got on the screen there about how long it takes for things to go up, and they drive you insane, you know. And yet you can do so much with long tasks to make them shorter and make them more valuable. Most people, you know, most people would engage, most young people would engage better with a homework task that made sense to them and seemed to have some kind of purpose to it than a homework task that just went on for ages and took a load of time when you'd rather be on the phone with your friends. That was the timer telling us we're halfway through. Actually, we're not halfway through because we had a couple of stops in the video. So we're just kind of halfway through the bit at the end, if you like. But as you can see there, it's gone on to amber. They're great, these timers. I use them a lot. I'll tell you where I use them in particular is if I'm doing a conference or a teach meet or something like that. Teach meets are where you go and you've got 10 minutes to talk about an idea, or 20 minutes you've got to talk about an idea that you've got in teaching and learning, and you can guarantee you that the 3 people on before you will have all gone over. And you know, the big worry is for me that I don't get my full time to put my message across. So what I do is I take this up to the podium with me and I say, this is my timer. I know everyone else has gone over their time, over their 20 minutes, but I'm not going to, because I'm going to set it for 20 minutes. And that stops people from being able to take time off me. So quite a good little manipulative toy there. Okay, this course is boring. What can you do to keep yourself engaged? Yeah, what do you do? I mean, it's easy for you because you just press the pause button and come back to me later when you think you can face a bit more of me. But in actual fact, what can you do to keep yourself engaged when you're actually live in a setting? I'm a big tweeter. I tweet things. So you know, I like to take photos if I'm on a conference or a course and I'm the learner. I like to do that kind of stuff. But you know, children don't have that option. Young people, they're not allowed really to have their mobile phones in lessons, etc. But you know, other things you can do. You can doodle. You can take notes. You can have fiddlies. I'm going to do a whole load of stuff about fiddlies. You can see I'm quite a fiddly person myself. I'm going to do a whole load of stuff about fiddlies when we do the hyperactivity module of this workshop, of the ADHD workshop. But, you know, things like that. If it's too much, you know, can you get up? Can you have a stretch? Can you do these things? If you want to do them, chances are the children you teach want to do them as well. And I would really strongly recommend that you integrate that. there was a phase for quite a long time of doing physical activities in the classroom when children came back from playtime. Total waste of time. Why would we do it straight after playtime? It's a bit like the ones when they did it first thing in the morning. So they'd come in the morning, they'd have a play on the playground with their friends, then they would come in, they'd have a chat, sit down, get on the carpet, and then all of a sudden you've got physical activity. It's the wrong time. Where you want that is halfway through your geography lesson. Just can't see my timer. When they've got a little bit bored and a little bit demotivated. Just put that there so I can see it. So, that's the sort of thing you want to be asking. What do you do? And can you share that with your learners? Visual timetables. People with attention deficit will do better when able to anticipate times required increasing concentration. Yeah. Life is not linear, school is not linear, and what you want to be doing is you want to be making that clear in your timetables. And some, when I say things are not linear, what I mean is some tasks are harder than other tasks. So we're making these films, the talking, the delivering, the training, easy peasy lemon squeezy. It's the stuff behind, and we've made a list of the stuff that we've got to do, and that's the kind of thing that we want for our ADHD learners, our learners with attention deficit, to appreciate the times and what we're doing, in what order, and how we need to make that work. A few more fun things. Organisation can be a bit difficult. If you've got a trouble with attention deficit, then you have got the potential for being disorganized. If you don't have your attention, then you tend to be a little bit disorganized. And so I tried to colour code things. When I was a young teacher, I linked everything to the national curriculum colours, and so I can even remember a few of them now. And because you would be teaching a lesson, and so maybe you'd be teaching an English lesson, and the children would come up to me and say, look, I've finished this task, what do I do now? And English was yellow in the national curriculum, so I'd have an extension table with a yellow tablecloth with some activities on there so that the kids knew what they were doing. The other one, so they didn't have to come and speak to me, it would be there for them. The other one would be, you'd be doing some maths activities on the board, and you say, right, okay, we've got these maths activities, maybe some times tables, something like that. Okay, thank you, children. Right now, would you please go and do back, click, click, these ones in your book? And somebody would always come up and say, is it my English or my maths book? Go, it's your maths book, it's maths. But actually this obviousness that we talk about isn't always that obvious. So if you've got a blue background to your whiteboard, then you want a blue activity, and you want a blue book, and your blue book is maths, because that's what maths used to be in the national curriculum, maybe still is. We want visual timetables in place. Trust me, I tell you now, the visual timetable is one of the most effective behaviour management strategies that you've got. There's hardly anything better than a visual timetable, because when people, they love to know what they're doing, and they love to know what order they're doing it. And so please, please, please use your visual timetables. Extremely, extremely useful. People who say to me they don't use them, how do you know they're not using them? You don't know. I mean, you wouldn't know if I'm looking at a timetable and checking stuff out. You just don't. So visual timetables, hugely, hugely important. Then we've got timers and reminders. You can have egg timers. Really, again, I use those again for fiddlies as well, fiddly toys, but timers, reminders. I've been using this one. I've also been using my phone for timers and stopwatches. They're great, they're just a really brilliant organisational strategy. And so I would really strongly recommend the use of those. Depending on what subject you're doing, I'm going to talk about the toothbrush. Toothbrush is falling off the next page. We'll pick up on that in a little while. But lists for what you've got to do, in what order. I'm going to be covering that again in autism and visuals. But, what do I need to do? You'll have heard me talking about leaving the spark plug out of a lawnmower in module 1. If that had been on my list to do, it'd have been okay. And so they're very, very useful activities, very useful tasks. And then over in the bottom left-hand corner, we've got online and mobile calendars. Again, calendars, perfect for your phones. What about your VLE? Has your school got a VLE? Have you got a virtual learning environment where children can log on and they can find out what schoolwork is doing tomorrow, what needs to be there? If I wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning, worried about my homework, can I check? Come on, ADHD person, you're probably not sleeping that well. Can I check? Can I get on the VLE? Can I find out about this stuff? And if the answer's yes, then the school is doing the job right. So some good stuff to be doing there. Other things, temptation for parents, isn't it really, to organise things for the children, for their children, to make sure they got all their stuff. I say no. I want you to make sure that you've packed your own bag for school, that the resources in that bag, your school books, is everything you're going to need. If you need a PE kit, that's you, because you need to learn these skills. ADHD is not a death sentence. ADHD is a condition that can allow you to make improvements. And so, please don't assume that these kids can't make changes. Same as your pencil case, make sure your pencil case is there. Looking after your own personal hygiene. This is the child's responsibility. This is the child's responsibility. The parent's responsibility and the teacher's responsibility is to teach those children to learn these things. Teaching to learn. There's a concept for you. We talked about the colour coding. This is a really good secondary one in the bottom right hand corner. The colour coding, where we looked at where we looked at colour coding lessons in a primary school setting. In a secondary school setting, can you colour code lessons to the rooms you're going to be in and things like that? Very, very helpful stuff. Could you even, it's a big one. Could you paint classroom door blue for an English classroom? Could you do it like they've got in hospitals? So follow the yellow line for an X-ray, follow the red line for a blood test, follow the black line for maternity or what have you. Could we do that? Hey, do you know what? Maybe we could paint the English teacher yellow and the maths teacher blue so they even know who they're talking to. Okay. Things like managing your bus money. Again, these are things that the child needs to learn. And then packing a lunchbox. Packing their own healthy lunchbox and making sure they've got the things they need for school. I got 4 children, and my children, I found out very early on that packing a lunch for children is not an easy task, because actually they all want different things. They don't all eat meat paste and Marmite like you'd hope. They all want different things, and it takes a long time. So from a very early age, my children made their own lunch boxes, and in actual fact, it's a massive life skill that they need to work out. If they don't pack enough, they're going to be hungry, and if they don't pack a drink, they're going to be thirsty, and if they, if they don't pack a snack, they've got nothing for playtime. So they need to learn this stuff in order to have a healthy day, and it's a life skill, as I keep saying. Okay, a few more like this. Okay, yeah. So we want to talk about lunches and making choices. Some schools, they send out school menus in advance, and so the children get to choose their meals way before, sometimes even weeks before they're there. This is a great way of doing things, because it stops the confusion, but teaching children to decide what they want before they go up to the canteen is a really, really helpful thing. It's interesting when I run a day course. If anyone's interested in running day courses, by the way, here's a hint for you. If you use a hotel and a conference room, the buffets that they provide are far more expensive than getting something off the off the menu. So actually, you're better off going on the bar menu or something like that. And so I found that out really early on, and people like it. They choose what they want rather than a cold curly buffet. But what I found out also was, if you leave it till 12 o'clock, you have a longer lunch break, you finish later, people dither. So the first thing I do when people come on a course, 9 o'clock in the morning, is I lay out some menus for them and I say, here you go, choose what you would like. And then that way, one, that they're not going to be late ordering their lunch is going to be there on time as long as the hotel know what they're doing, and two, it puts people in their comfort zone. They're talking about food, people really like that. So making choices early on. We've talked about using timers. Big fan of using timers. We've got the different one there. They're cooking timers, brilliant, really useful things. Learning about which bus to get on, getting on the right bus to go home, again, very, very helpful stuff. And having maps in order to get around the place. I'm in different schools nearly every day, and maps to me, I wish there were more of them in my life, that's for sure. And you could, of course, again, colour code those maps. Colour coded the maps is a really useful tool so that you know where you're going next. And maybe you could do something with IT. Colour coded rooms. That picture there shows different coloured door handles. Canteen menus in advance, and then teacher photos online in foyers, so that people know who they're looking for. Gosh, that helps me so much. You know, when you go into a school, when I go into a school, maybe I'm delivering a twilight, so I get to the school about 3:15, and there's a big board on the wall with them pictures of all the teachers, and obviously I've been emailed by somebody, probably the Senko, Mr. Smith, Mrs. Smith, and I always have a little look so that when they come up, I can shake their hand immediately, say hello, greet them, and they go, my gosh, he's good, isn't he? Already knew who I was, you know. It's really, really helpful stuff, and it just puts you at ease. It puts people at ease, and that's what we want. Subject checklists, different things require different resources. Make sure that they're aware of that and that they've got those different resources by having the correct checklists. That might be something you have to help them with, but once you've created it with them, then you're pretty much done. Then they can manage it themselves. Talking through ideas, you're going to be writing an essay. Talk through it. Have regular tutorials right from early on, even extended writing in late upper key stage 1. You know, to be doing that sort of thing. It's very frustrating for children if they've not written the right thing, you know, and if they've talked it through with you before and they've got their ideas across, you can sort of make sure that they're on the right track. Recording ideas, like it or loathe it, most kids have got a phone now. Phones have got a voice recorder. You can record ideas, you can share it with teacher. Short-term memory problems become less of an issue because you don't forget these things. Homework on the intranet, homework on the VLE, again, really important stuff. Breaking tasks down into their component parts. For ADHD, extended writing is a big issue. For ADHD, the better thing that you can do is give them 4 or 5 titles to write a few pages about. One of the problems I've got is I don't have a book out, and because I really just don't have the attention to write a book. And I was speaking to Kevin Roberts, who's got ADHD, and I said, Kevin, how do you write a book? He's written 3 books. He said, I don't write a book. He said, I write about 5 or 10 pages about something I'm interested in, and I call it a chapter. And then I write 5 or 10 pages about something else I'm interested in and call that a chapter. And I do 10 of those, and now I've got a book. And that's how you do it. Well, that's the kind of idea. History of the battle, boom. What people said about the battle, boom. And we keep doing more and more of that. Telling people what they're doing in what order through school so they can see a pattern. You might even have to explain that pattern. And finally, assignment templates. People with ADHD generally like worksheets. They like worksheets because a worksheet has got to fill the gap activity. You've not got to write loads of writing, and you just need to fill in the bits that you want. Few other bits and pieces. We'll start with folder organization, because folder organization, if you can see the folders of a person with ADHD on their computer, it's like document soup. So teaching them folder organization is a really helpful thing. Getting the text to speech and the speech to text. So maybe you don't have that writing, all that kind of stuff to be put down on text, to be typed up, I'm trying to say. Screen ruler there. Screen ruler is really helpful because that just gets them to the bit that they want, so they're not distracted by the rest of it. So it's like bite-sized learning, to quote the BBC. Changing background colour. Many people with ADHD have what we used to call sensory integration dysfunction. We now call sensory processing disorder. And so some of those sensory things you would associate with autism and dyslexia, you might find with ADHD. And again, we're back to that comorbid coexistence of conditions, that you've got different things going on at the same time. So they may be autistic and ADHD, for example. Quick look at special interests. I'm going to do a whole session on special interests for you when we get to autism, but they are something to be exploited. They are a positive. They are a thing that you need to be working with. So here's an interesting one. This is a child that I was called in to see. He was a school refuser, and he was really interested in Minecraft. And all he was doing was sitting at home all day playing Minecraft on his computer. He's about 13 years old. His mum was making him endless cups of tea and feeding him hobnobs, and he was having a great time. What was school doing? School had been really helpful. They'd set up a room for him with Minecraft and a computer that he could go and play. Why on earth would he do that? Think about it. He's got his Minecraft at home. He's got his hobnobs and his cups of tea, and he's sitting in his pyjamas in his own front room. He doesn't want this. So I remember speaking to him and saying, what we have to do is make school a bit more irresistible for you. Are you aware of, now I'd use the example of Pi-top computers, which is computers powered by Raspberry Pi. That you build them yourself and you program yourself and you create your own games on them. This is dream come true stuff. And I spoke to this lad and I said, if we could get Pi-top in school for you, but you wouldn't be able to bring it home, would you go into school? Absolutely, yes, I was. He was dead excited by this. Well, that's the point, isn't it? Because we'd made it irresistible. Instead of just creating the same in school that he was getting, you create something absolutely fantastic that he can't say no to. And that's how special interests work. And so if you're thinking about that, you need to make it irresistible. And if you're unsure about what irresistible looks like, there's a picture on the screen there to help you out. Okay, coming close to the end now. So I just wanted to remind you of the ADHD triad that I put up, and the fact that inattention will come with impulsivity, or inattention will come with impulsivity and hyperactivity. And so you need to be aware of that when you're putting interventions and strategies in place. So here's your directed task for this activity. How can you make change to ensure maximum attention and engagement? So have a little think about the things that we talked about on this session, and how can you make change to ensure maximum attention and engagement. And I'll look forward to seeing you all in Module 3.